real success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I've got an extra special treat for you. Joining me in the Hit Lab today. This dude is all over the place. You've seen him all over social media. I'm excited to have him joining me on the Hitstreak today, folks. He's a sought-out keynote speaker, the CEO of Impact Effect, and a true expert in building relationships. My guy, Jim Morris. How we doing, baby?
Absolutely wonderful, brother. Absolutely wonderful. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we made it happen. Thanks for having me.
Well, we got a lot to talk about today, don't we?
We do. I'm fired up. I woke up this morning saying, man, I get to hijack the Hitstreak today, baby.
That's right, baby.
Let's go.
Right. That's right. So he got a double sound effect on that one. Did you hear that? So, dude, you made a post on Facebook recently that really struck a chord with me, and I wanted to get right into that right away because it was such a powerful, confident yet vulnerable, and even authentic, emotional post. Like it had all the emotions in one, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it really pumped me up and got me inspired, man. So talk to me a little bit about the story you told on that post.
So I had a live event here in Nashville yesterday. I do events monthly, throw an annual conference, really trying to help business professionals and entrepreneurs and business owners, and build a community of people that can support, trust, and be there for each other. So I started my speech yesterday at the live event by bringing my daughter up with me.
That's awesome.
And chatting through the fact that relationships are so powerful in business, but we really need to understand the most important relationship. And for me, and our friend Brad Lee taught me that the most important relationship is the one with yourself. But I wanted to start off a business conversation by telling people why I do this and what the impact is for me and my family. So I brought my little girl up. She's 15 months old. And I kicked it off about talking about relationships and the why and the impact. And Brian Gelke, one of our keynote speakers, who was in your studio the other day.
He's awesome.
Amazing. Just a genuine great guy. He had sent me a picture last night of me speaking with my daughter in my hands. And several people at the event were telling me dude, you're crushing it. Things are so great, man. You're doing all the things. And I had all these positive comments. And I just felt in the moment last night that I had to share something a little personal and a little vulnerable. And what I wanted to share was a couple months ago, I was thinking about giving up on my dreams. Right? So, I felt that I owed the people in my community, the people that support me, that come to these events, the truth. And the truth was that, yeah, man, this is a roller coaster ride for me. And leaving the corporate world, going into some successful businesses that I've done in the past, that I've sold, that I've failed, diving fully back into real estate and transacting as a realtor is easy for me to do, to go back to.
Yeah.
And I actually do have someone who always hits me up and says, you have a standing offer whenever you need it.
Oh.
Right? So from the guy who talks about burning the boats and going all in on entrepreneurship and events and building relationships and speaking, there is those moments where sometimes it is easier to have that thought to just go back to the corporate world or go back to what's safe, what's comfortable. And the reason why I didn't do that and the reason why I wanted to share that story was not to say, oh, everything's great and I'm so cool and strong that I didn't go back and I'm going to keep on going on. No, I just wanted to share the raw truth that these are thoughts that come up time and time again. And this is hard. Owning your own business and growing and doing all the things and showing up digitally and on social and in person and speaking and traveling and preparing. All those things are tough.
Yeah.
But the number one thing and the number one reason why I don't give up and why I wanted to share that story with others was truly because I want to show my daughter. I want to show my daughter who I am and what's possible and capable, and not just tell her.
That's right.
And I don't want her to go and admire someone else who didn't give up.
I mean, we could end it right there and it would be a kick-ass episode. You know what I'm saying? That was awesome. Dude, you know, I started thinking about a business partner of mine has, you know, been going through some tough personal challenges, like real tough personal challenges, not like, you know, he feels bad and so on and so forth, like literally like a relationship issue and there's kids involved and it's hard on him, right? Really hard on him.
Yep.
And at the same time, he's in the middle of like 5 deals that if any one of them hit, they're literally life-changing. Okay. And more than one's going to hit. It's just, they take a while, you know? And, but I was sitting there thinking about how, you know, all the things that we've learned while working through those deals and how we needed them. Like he needed those deals to be finished last year, yet they're not. Yet now he's stronger and it's made him fight even harder. And that's turned into more deals. And now he's helping more people in ways he didn't even know that he could do, all through the gift of the struggle, where he didn't get what he wanted it on his time. It's happening on God's time, right? And it's funny too, because I was thinking Dad was in the music business growing up. And some of, like, I heard Kenny Chesney sing when Kenny Chesney had nothing, and I heard Kenny Chesney sing when Kenny Chesney had everything. And Kenny Chesney was the same. The songs were the same, and his voice was the same. You know what I'm saying? Just the audience was different.
Timing.
That's right.
Yep.
Timing. And that was what really like sparked to me last night is that, you know, I feel like that hope, or that post gave a lot of people hope. And like that, you know, hope shows you life through a different lens, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And I think you talked about something with your friend that's so important that we forget. We're not on our time. As much as we want to be, as much as we anticipate and expect, everything in my life, whenever my back was up against the wall, whenever I was making an expansion or transition, whenever things didn't go wrong, whenever I thought the end was near, and times were dark, man.
Yeah.
But that's everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
like pick your poison almost when it comes to those roller coaster emotions and effects and periods of time in your life.
That's right.
But I always remembered that it always worked out, and there was always a reason why that timing didn't hit at that point in time.
That's right.
And we were talking about Brad Lee, or, you know, our friend Brad Lee. And like, when I was flying out to go on Brad's podcast, it was in July and he got sick the day before. And
I remember that he was real sick.
And that was a really big podcast for me, right? Like I was like, wow, like I'm flying out there. I've got some friends in Vegas. I'm meeting my buddy Neil Dingra. He's got his conference going on. It was this amazing week. And he got sick and I had to cancel, and it cost me money, right? Like I had to cancel the hotel and the flights and all that. And then we rescheduled for a couple months later. And in that couple months, I was a completely different person.
That's right. That's right.
And that interview, I watched it a couple weeks ago and I was like, wow, I see the transition and change in just 60 days.
That's right.
And it was like, I was frustrated at first and I was like, oh man, maybe we won't get to reschedule. And damn, man, I lost some money. You know, like can't get the hotel back because I'm canceling less than 24 hours, right?
Yep.
And all those things. But the next 60 days, I had so much expansion, so much fine tuning of my thought process, so much learning about who I was and how I wanted to show up and what I wanted to share.
Yeah.
And I crushed that interview. And I can proudly say that because I don't need anybody else's admiration or opinion related to it, because I know who I was 60 days before and who I was that day.
That's right.
And that's just so powerful. And I think it comes back to faith.
Absolutely. Oh, everything.
Right?
Everything.
It's like, hey, maybe the time's not now, but I have to have faith.
That's right.
To keep going and keep pushing. And it sounds like your friend has faith and he's that close to getting it. And I don't even know, man. And I'm rooting for him, brother.
Well, you know, you got to feed and fuel your faith rather than, you know, your fear, your problems or anything else. But, you know, and you're right. That was Brad's podcast is a big one. It's a big one. It's one of the biggest ones and it's a good one. And, but like, you know, if you had gone on it in the first, when it was originally scheduled, it wouldn't have been as good. Like, I feel like I'm the worst I'm going to be for the rest of my life today, you know, and then tomorrow I can say the same thing. Yeah. Cause we're constantly growing. So, but, the
only thing we can control is the thing in between our two ears.
That's exactly right.
Right. And how we speak to ourselves and how we show up. And
that's right.
And I'll share one quick story about Brad's podcast that I've actually never shared it publicly, I don't think.
All right.
You know, you go to Brad's and he's got similar to you, like you get welcomed and your name's on the thing, and you guys do it up, by the way, you and Jim Gray, like y'all are just freaking amazing with the pre-show stuff. But I was walking in and you go into his dressing room and you've been there, it's super nice, and you're looking at the fountain and, you know, it's got the mirrors to check your stuff, and John Gordon's in there before me. And I'm like, man, John Gordon, you know, wrote 30 books, Energy Bus, like, whoo. So I like start to feel some pressure, right? I'm like, I'm going to see John Gordon and meet him for the first time and all this stuff. And they gave me a bottle of Voss water, and I'm in there and I'm thinking through everything and I'm getting excited and I feel the emotions coming over, and I drop the bottle of Voss water and it explodes and there's water everywhere, all over the dressing room, right? And I'm like, the old Jim Morris, the 60 days ago Jim Morris, he would have, Jim, you're such an idiot. Why'd you drop the water? How embarrassing. And that little thing, dropping a bottle of water, would have ruined that podcast for me.
Gotcha.
And the work that I did from when I first was supposed to go on to it to when I did, in that moment, I took a deep breath and I started laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
And it didn't even matter. Like,
That's right.
I cleaned up the water. As I threw the paper towel away, John and Brad came out and I was like, what's up, dude? And like, no one even knew about it.
Yeah.
But something that small, the person who I used to be, it would have affected so much.
That's right.
And something so stupid of dropping a bottle of water, because I've had this ego and everything needed to be perfect. And I set these expectations for me that just were never realistic.
That's right.
So that 60-day period and that podcast and that little stupid thing of dropping a bottle of water had so much impact on me, man.
Dude, you know, if David and I had have closed those deals in at the end of 23 like we wanted to, which now we're closing them in 24, we're way more equipped. You know, we've learned so much more that there was problems coming we didn't know about, and now we're prepared, right? Yep. You know, so we're going to give the client a much greater experience, which is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yep.
So, you know, again, like, I'm a big believer that God don't bless you with things you're not ready to receive. And, you know, we didn't know it yet, but there were some things that we still need to learn. Because again, these are bigger accounts than we've ever dealt with before. I mean, they're massive, absolutely massive. And they're international, worldwide. It's incredible, literally life-changing. And so, you know, that's what we kept talking to each other about it. Is like, dude, you know, these are some of the biggest, like, these are the accounts everybody wants in our space. So, like, you know, it's, you know, it's, why would we have think that it was going to be easy to get there?
Exactly.
You know, well, dude, that's incredible, man. So I know that, like, you've told your story multiple times. Everybody's heard it. Like, you came from corporate world where you were extremely successful. You had what most people would call the American dream. You know what I mean? You made, you were incredibly young, didn't have a lot of expenses, were making good six figures. You had all the fun things, the toys, and, you know, you had a job, the ultimate cushy job. Holy cow. Right. And you just left it all to go do what you were called to do.
That's it, man. That's
right.
it.
So you had something that was easy and something that, quite frankly, you could have taken care of you for probably the rest of your life.
Yep. To
go do something that you didn't know a whole lot as much about and take a whole bunch of risk, and now you're taking your family through all that with you, right? So, like, dude, I think it's unbelievable and it's amazing. But talk to me about, like, you know, it was, going back to your story, it was you know, you're an ethical dude.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You're here. Like, what is your calling? You're doing what you're called to do. It sounds like you're just called to be an authentic, ethical person that helps a lot of people, right? What is your calling, Jim?
I love to help people build relationships. So as I go back and look at my entire life, this continues to pop up. And when I say relationships, what I truly mean is friendships within business. So I like to help companies, I like to help individuals really understand how to build a relationship to help benefit everybody. Right? So it's not necessarily about the business.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about your growth, but how can you show up in leadership and build true, real relationships that matter, that enhance that person and have a ripple effect on the entire company? So relationship building in business, relationship building in leadership, sales. I mean, the hiring process. Like, I look back and I'm like, why did I hire the best managers in every company I worked for? Well, it's because I built a relationship with them. I mean, managers that used to work for me 5-6 years ago, we're still friends.
Yeah.
We still talk. And yeah, I was responsible for them. I had to hire them and fire them.
Yeah.
And some of them I did fire, but we're still friends. And I look back and I'm like, man, who would have ever done those jobs in transportation and hospitality? It's 365 days a year. It's a $50,000 salary, 2 weeks vacation. You're working all shifts, right? Hotels never close.
Yeah.
Transportation for healthcare starts at 3:30 in the morning, transporting nurses and doctors on site, on campus. And I'm like, who's getting up and doing all that for $50,000 a year? Well, they were doing it because of the relationship we built.
Right.
They were doing it because I structured the path that I wanted them to go down, and I opened up the opportunity for them to potentially get there. And through that, what I realized is, man, every transition, every expansion, every decision I've made, it's gone well based on the relationships I've had. And the other piece of it is those relationships that have those things that haven't gone well, who was there to pull me out of the dark days? Right? Someone, not something.
That's right.
And those relationships are just so important. So it doesn't matter if it's, an intern you're building a relationship with or the president of the company. The art of human connection is what we all seek and need.
Boom.
And how do you define human connection? Understanding how to provide value, but how to show up and love on others. And it doesn't mean you need to, give people bonuses every 6 weeks, or doesn't mean you need to, pay for a vacation for their family at the end of the year. How do you show up in micro commitments and love on your people day to day?
Yeah. Tough love too, right?
And that's the other piece of it. Love doesn't always need to be positive. It may be calling someone out on their shit.
Yeah.
It may be saying, hey, what are you doing, dude?
Yep.
I love you. I care for you.
That's
that
right.
person's bad. And this is why. We know it. Like, stay away. Or, even trying to understand the person. Like, why do you want to hang out with that crew or that group? Or, and I think about this as a kid, like, so many people were like, why are you doing that? Why are you hanging out with them? But they never built a relationship with me and explained why that was bad for me to transition and move away from those friend groups. So we talk about relationships, and I focus more on the business side of it, but what I teach and what I train and what I coach on can enhance your world in any relationship because it's a unifying bond of love that brings us together. And how do you love on your people?
Right.
And being a millennial myself, I experienced the beer on Fridays and the pizza parties, and it just doesn't do it.
Right.
And it's not going to do it for the next generation and the next generation. Those next generations, they want to see, based on my post, right, of what we were talking about earlier, they want to see what I'm doing, not me just tell them what I'm doing.
That's right.
So I need to show up, and I need to be consistent, and that's what I'm building. And that's my goal, is to help people on the business side understand human connection, but ultimately for the greater cause of them,
Man.
and their future. Not necessarily the dollar bills.
That's right.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends, and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more.
We were talking last night about every person that got their break, whether it was their big break or whatever, somebody gave them the job, somebody signed them to the contract, somebody gave them the opportunity to perform, somebody gave them the stage, somebody gave them whatever it was. Every person that had any form of a break of any kind, it came from a relationship with somebody else. And I feel like you're a master of that. And Jim and I were talking about this the other day about how, I was like, you look at the people that are going the places the fastest, and the people that have the calendars that are the hardest to get on, you see their name on there. When they open up their Google Calendar, you see their name on there. They have the ability to get on the calendar. I feel like you can do that extremely well.
Yes. It's interesting because, I was taught early on, like, provide value when building a relationship. And it was, and then I learned, like, well, and I think Brad talks about this a lot. I don't think I heard it from Brad, but to ask someone how to be valuable is actually not valuable.
That's right.
Right? Because then it takes time.
That's Brad for sure.
Is that Brad?
Yeah. He's like, dude, if you come here and say, how can I help you? I'm like, bro, I'm not going to tell you. Like, that's your job to figure out.
Yeah. Well, what I learned is, how do you acquire that information? By building relationships around the subject or the person that you want to get close to.
There it is.
Right? So we live in a world of just quickness, and we want stuff fast, and our expectation is we say we're going to do something and we get it, right? And that's not real when it comes to relationships. There needs to be a strategy, there needs to be approach, because you can get in the room is harder to stay in the room, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Staying in the room is difficult. We've been talking about that too, ain't we? Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, how do we do that? And I think personally is, well, if I want to go build a relationship with, Jennifer over here, well, who does Jennifer surround herself with? And what can I learn about Jennifer by me surrounding myself with the people that Jennifer surrounds herself with, right? So it's that 7 degrees of separation almost.
Yeah.
Like, how can I get around the people and then learn about the person that I'm trying to build a relationship with, and then bring the true value to them, or bring ideas?
Yeah.
That was the other thing that I learned too, is like, if you don't really know how to provide value or how to help someone, well, think of a creative idea or a creative strategy around something that may be in the vicinity of what they're doing, and pitch it.
Right.
And pitch it as, hey, I just thought about this. It popped in my head. I've got a couple resources. If this is something of interest, I'm happy to help you for free. I'm happy to show up. I'm happy to be a part of it. I don't need anything in return.
Right.
Well, if you came to me with a really cool idea and was like, doesn't need to be my idea, but I'll help you accomplish it.
Right.
And I align with it, and I do some research on you, and you have a presence, and we have alignment in our core values, right? Like, you're a good dude, or at least I think, and I've done some vetting, then yeah, I'm gonna respond to that.
That's right. That's right. So let's, my wife and I have helped a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of people, start an insurance agency. All right. So they're coming in, and most of these people were starting from scratch. They'd never done anything like this before. They're literally just trying to get on people's calendars, right? Yep. And provide value and solve problems. And one of the first things that they'll all go do is they'll all go start visiting some BNIs, some chambers, some local networking groups, whatever. And they all go there looking for a referral, right? And I remember when I first started, I went there to find out who everybody knew. I wanted to find out who had the most contacts, the biggest client list, and who knew all the movers and shakers around town, to fast track me getting in front of them.
Of course.
Because we didn't have a podcast back then to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, and that was what everybody goes there to get, rather than truly give. Because I knew one of the things that I had was a big phone book. You know what I mean? I had a lot of contacts, and that was a lot of value that I was coming in. So the more I learned about people, I would be like, oh man, you need to know him. You need to know her. You guys should work together. Oh dude, they got clients that you need to talk to, and so on and so forth. And that was literally like the foundation of everything that we've ever built, was those personal relationships. And then that translated into social media and everything else, right? So what advice would you have for those starting out? Because literally, like, when you left corporate America, you had a kick-ass time in frozen beverages. You started a company in frozen beverages, right? So talk to me about how you did that so fast, man. Because coming out of corporate America, you weren't necessarily trained to do that.
Yeah. So for me, it was something that came somewhat natural, right? Like showing up, supporting people, checking in on them. That's something that I just always did. Excuse me. So when I left, I had good relationships. People that worked for me, people that were managers for me, good relationships with people above me, and all the clients. So what I did was I just reached out to people and said, hey, I'm doing something different. But how can I support you in what I'm doing now?
Right.
Well, because the relationship was built, they turned around and said, well, how can I support you? And then we decided to collaborate or partner or do whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's showing up daily and being consistent and being who you are and loving on your people. Like, everybody asks me, like, how do you do it? How do you stay in touch with people? Well, it's strategy and it's work. Like, I have a CRM system And I actually just talked on this yesterday at my event. I have a CRM system, but I focus on the R, relationships.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know what CRM stands for.
Correct.
Customer Relationship Management.
Yeah.
And it's just CM.
Yeah.
Customer management. Like in the pipeline, it's like lead, prospect, meeting, one lost.
Yeah.
Well, you're jumping right into business and you're just trying to manage the flow of business and manage the potential customer or the actual customer if they buy from you.
Right.
We forgot about the relationship piece.
Yeah.
So going through starting that business is understanding, like, in your pipeline, is this someone that I value or I agree with, or is our core values aligned? That's like the first stage for me.
Yeah.
The second stage is, do I know enough about their family? The third stage is, do they know about me and my family? And then that fourth stage goes, are they now potentially a lead? And I think we need to slow down.
Yeah.
We're so in such a world of speed. I mean, I remember in my real estate, career, which I still transact here and there, but when I was doing 60 homes a year, everybody was speed to lead, speed to lead, speed to lead. And my mentality around that changed how I showed up for relationships.
Right.
And the other day when I was talking, I was like, and I think I said this earlier, I was like, before we shot and got on the podcast, I'm like, if you look back in your text messages for the last 3 years, there's $1 million sitting in there.
Boom.
You just have to build the relationship.
Dude, that's one of the most powerful things anybody's ever said on this podcast. You need to say that again. For real. That's gold, bro.
If you look back in your text messages for the last couple of years, I can guarantee you that there's $1 million sitting there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we just need to slow down. It's not about, I grew up like, you need 10,000 leads, 20,000 emails, 30,000 this, and it was just numbers, more.
Yeah.
And I know sales is a numbers game, and I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with it. But if you spend a little bit more time on the relationships you have and you built those, then those will produce more revenue, and you don't actually have to dial all day. Like dialing's part of it. Don't get me wrong in sales, but like, imagine if you could make 7 phone calls
You have to evolve.
and make the same amount of money as making 150 that day. What would you rather do, Nick? 7 or
dude.
150?
Man, so that was literally when Rhea and I were making the transition from nightclubs and restaurants and AV into health insurance. Our personal network did solid, but it was the greatest thing that our network did for us is they challenged us to prove that we were experts in our field before they bought from us. So it was like, prove you're good at this and we can talk. We're all yours. But like, I know you're brand new, so I know you can't be that good yet. So, and I don't want to I feel like health insurance is a bad way to take a risk on your new venture, my health insurance. So I was grateful for that. So Rhiannon and I made a commitment in 2015, back when leads became a thing in that industry. We were buying data, and that was people answered the phone back then. It wasn't all text messages and voicemail. So to call 100 people a day, it took all day long.
Yep.
It took all day long. And we did that for, I think, if I could be wrong, but it's going to be close, around 532 days in a row.
Wow.
We called 100 people, and people say, why not 533? And it was because that was the day that so many people called us. We didn't have time to make that. We still probably dialed 70, 80 people that day, but we didn't hit our 100 because we were fielding all the incoming calls.
Yep.
And then, after that, doing that, within 6 months, we were dialing 0 people. We were buying 0 data. It was all inbound. It was all marketing that we controlled, that was targeted by us.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And that evolution was outstanding, and it changed our life forever because those 532 days were extremely difficult. Those vacations, I went back and we used to tell the insurance agents, I can't remember how many deaths in the family there were in funerals, how many times we got sick, how many vacations, how many times my son had 18,000 baseball games on a Saturday, and we're calling from the trunk in between games and stuff. While I'm coaching third base, my wife might be in the back seat of the SUV making some dials.
Yep.
It was a priority for us,
Yeah.
and it was something that we just decided. If what it takes is what it takes, and if this is what it takes, we'll just do it. And and once we made that decision, it was refreshing and it was easy. And the 100 dials became just a part of what we did. It went from being this big, huge thing to now all of a sudden we didn't even think about what's Saturday or it's Sunday. We found out that everybody that wasn't doing it like we were doing it, they spelled weekend with an A in it. It was WEAKEND.
That's it.
So,
and you said something super powerful there. you and your wife made a commitment.
That's right. That's right.
And when you make a commitment, you don't go back on it.
That's right. Isn't that what the definition of it is just doing what you said you were going to do?
Which is one of the hardest things, I think, in
Absolutely.
the world we live in today, to actually accomplish.
Absolutely. And it turns out that the rush of the deal from a satisfied customer and all the education, because like nobody knew anything about this. We didn't either when we started, and that was one of the things that inspired us when we first got into it, is like we started, oh my gosh, this is really incredibly valuable information that we should have known, that causes a lot of people a lot of financial crisis,
Sure.
from an accident. Healthy people that bad things happen. And it changed our whole perspective on it. And it became our life's work to educate people on that, and we still do it today. And my wife's, I'd put her up against anybody when it comes to that stuff, So again, it's one of the things that worked for us with the CRM. One of the things that worked for us with money, and I kind of came to this from reading one of the most game-changing books for us was Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And it taught me how to humanize certain things that, for me, it made us pay attention to them different. So like our CRM, for instance, what's a machine? Well, but we gave it a name. And then we started, if that was a human, what would that CRM be doing today? What would its job be?
Yep.
And so we programmed it as a human, and we treated it, we checked on it like a human. We didn't get the feedback we might get from a human, just like we do with our own money. When we invest money, if there's $100, I'm like, well, that's 100 soldiers that are going out that have to come back with more soldiers.
Yep.
And that's, so we humanized money, we humanized our CRM, we humanized everything because we were good at relationships. So we wanted to put ourselves in a place of comfort where we thrive, which was in relationships. So we turned everything into a relationship, all of our tools. And people think that that's weird, but it worked for us.
Well, I think it shows the culture within the organization, right? Like if you value a piece of technology or a system or whatnot, and you treat it like a human, then wouldn't you treat every employee who actually is a human like a human?
That's right.
Right? So that level of commitment,
Oh yeah.
that level of consistency really speaks to the culture of the company and organization that you built. And that's probably why you had all these agencies open and all these reps, and
Yeah.
it's not luck.
That's right.
Like, and I think that's the biggest thing, is like people are like, well, I'm just going to keep going and I'm just going to keep trying new things, and it's just eventually going to hit. And it's like, well, slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down for a second, be strategic, understand it, and then implement and make some of those changes.
That's right.
The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more.
Treating your CRM like a human, man.
Oh,
I
dude.
love that.
And it's funny, even when we pick the names, because like we do this with like our son picked our dog's name when he was little. He was Big Monsters Inc. fan, so the dog's name's Sully. But before that, like not a lot of people don't know this, but like I love nostalgia, old sitcoms, and one of my favorites is the Golden Girls. All right, so like I still watch the Golden Girls today. I have a Golden Girls coffee mug. I got T-shirts, everything. So like we use old lady names for all of our names, like Iris. We use the Golden Girls names, Blanche and Sophia, and all that kind of stuff. And we always remember them. They're very memorable that way. But they're names that reference joy. So it's, again, it's just, I talk to this Jim over here all the time. Like, when you call, when people see your name pop up, do they get excited? Or do they think, oh gosh, it's him, Yep. When, if you're having a hard time getting on people's calendar, think about what what is it that you're not providing to them that would make them want to be on your calendar? There's a mindset that I use is I tell them, I was like, guys, I don't take meetings, I set them. I don't like to take a lot of meetings. I like to set meetings.
Yes.
Because I think life is an offensive sport, and that's one of the ways for me to be offensive.
I like that, man. I got to put that in the back pocket and use that one. And I
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah. Well, I think too, like, a lot of people have an expectation that individuals will give them the time because they have the time, or because they will give someone else time. And what I've learned is like, it's not necessarily time, it's energy. Like, so to go take a meeting with someone who wants to pick my brain, what energy do I get from that?
That's right.
And the other thing that I've learned, and more recently I've been diving into this and looking at studies and really, really doing some deep work on it, is I realized for a long time that a win-win situation, I have to win in it too. And like,
Yeah. I think Derek Jeter says loyalty, trust, and communication one way is stupid. It's got to go both.
totally. And that's the simplest switch for me, but it's like, well, I want win-wins.
Yeah.
And if I just want you to win and I want to lose, then what type of husband am I? What type of father am I? Right? Like, I'm going to go create a world where we just help everybody and we lose on everything, and it pulls our energy and our time. And what that's going to do is create emotions between the family that cause friction and problems.
Right.
So it's like, well, if you don't want me to win and you to win, then there's not a core alignment right there with our beliefs.
Yeah.
So I won't take that meeting. And to pick your brain, I think that's a phrase that we've been conditioned to use. And what I see and what I've experienced is that's actually offensive.
Yep.
Like if you really think about that phrase or that statement, it's actually offensive, because what you're saying is, you're really smart, but I don't value the information enough. And what I do value is, I'll buy you a cup of coffee to get that information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that doesn't sit well with me.
Right.
You know, and I don't want to do that to other people.
Yeah.
And I want to give energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was trying to catch a meeting with someone, and were doing a lot and they weren't responding. And I was like, hey, instead of buying you a cup of coffee, how about I give you advice that's priceless on your business about building relationships so you can retain more employees? Because I saw a couple posts that you said you were hiring. I also know someone who used to work for you, and that was one of the reasons why they left.
That's right.
They loved the job. They didn't love you. And that person was like, yeah, we're having such a bad, and they started giving me information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that information, now I showed up in that meeting and provided value. We didn't talk about me at all.
Yeah.
We didn't talk anything about me. Well, now that person's calling me and asking to meet with me. And now there's an opportunity for us to have a win-win.
That's right.
Right? Because I went in with a strategy to give the value, and I did the research, and I did provide value, and now they want to spend time with me. So now there's a win-win.
The research is the key thing for me that you're saying right there, that because again, you know, we have, sometimes I'm in proximity to some of our clients here at the agency. And I sit out there and sometimes I'll be sitting behind them in a church service or whatever it may be. And I just look at them and I think, you know, how well do we actually know that person over there? You know, there's an investment that has to be made to truly bring the best out in them and give them the greatest experience. And, you know, you were talking about how you have to have a certain level of health to be able to help other people, right? If it's all going out and nothing's coming back, you eventually run out,
Yep.
you know? And that's, for me, that's what my faith is to me, right? So when I was always taught to put others first, right? Well, you have to be a certain, of certain health, you know, and mindset to be able to do that effectively, right? So for me, that's the faith. When I'm working on myself, I'm actually just fueling my faith so that I can help others. And the easiest way to describe that is when you get on the airplane and they're like, you know, in the instant, if an emergency happens, don't put the oxygen mask on you first, or on somebody else first. You got to put on yourself first, right? Because you can't help anybody passed out on the floor, you know, because you couldn't breathe. So you got to put yourself in a place of health to truly be able to go out and have an impact on people, right?
Totally.
I think that kind of leads us into the impact effect.
Let's go, baby. Impact effect.
So, like, this is what I really want to get out, dude. Because again, you know, you kind of burst onto the scene a little bit, you know, and that's a compliment.
Thank you,
okay,
brother. Thank you.
You burst on the scene, and nobody has anything bad to say about you. Everybody's only got good things, and I really truly feel like you're only getting started.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the rubber just met the road.
Yeah.
You know? So talk to me about the impact effect. Talk to me about like who you're becoming, and where you're going and what that means to everybody else. Because folks, you got to pay attention. Before he answers this question, therealjimmorris.com. Check him out on Instagram at therealjimmorris. Okay.
So my journey has expanded, and I've learned to give myself grace and to give other people grace through the process. When I first started, I really beat myself up a lot. And what I didn't realize was I was transitioning and expanding into something completely different that I had no experience with, and I only had a couple mentors within this industry. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to shield people from joining a program or joining a community that wasn't ethically driven to actually benefit them.
Gotcha.
And what I was experiencing was I'd have a relationship, and then someone would try to sell me something. I'd think we're building a relationship, someone saying, I love you, brother, I love you. And then all of a sudden they're sending me this or that. And I'm like, how can I do this a little bit differently? So Impact Effect is bringing a community together of people that want to grow, people that seek the same vision, people that seek the same values, folks that want to support each other, but folks that also need support as well. So I built this digital community, been throwing events for a couple years, and really almost gave up, man. I almost gave up 2 times.
What caused that?
I was sitting at the dinner table with my wife, and this was right before my conference last year, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and I broke down and started crying, and I'm like, you didn't marry someone who you married was someone who was successful in real estate, making $500,000 a year, and you've supported me with this transition, but am I showing up as the person that you wanted to marry, right? Because at that point, we've only been married a year.
Oh, wow.
So new relationship,
Dude, yeah.
new marriage, new child, right? So everything was new, and I just felt that she didn't sign up for this. And I was being selfish. And in that moment, I said, I think I'm going to sell the event company. I think I'm going to, just do something different. And she's like, you're crazy. Why don't you go to sleep? Like, go to sleep, sleep on it. And she's like, you shouldn't do that. And the next day I woke up and I recreated this vision. I called it Impact Effect because I wanted to influence the results of people. So impact means to me is influence in a positive way. Growing up, the reason why I chose the word impact, because growing up, the word impact had negative connotation to me. I was angry that my parents were addicted to OxyContin. The word impact was always negative. Why are they impacting me so badly? Why are they impacting me so poorly? Right? So for me, this was a perspective shift.
Gotcha.
In my journey. And it's not like, oh, you just chose a buzzword, impact. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a buzzword. But the definition of impact was so negative for so long for me that I needed to face that fear in the face and put it in everything and use it in all my vocabulary and brand it, because I did believe that if I could make that expansion and transition, then I can help other people make that as well.
Let's go.
So Impact Effect is growing. I'm still learning. I don't know everything. This is really hard. I found some great mentorship and built some amazing relationships with people that care.
Yeah.
Speakers that charge $50,000, $100,000 coming in and doing it for free because they know where my heart is. They know that I don't have the money to potentially pay them that fee right now, but they see what I'm building and they admire the fact that I'm going for it. And I'm openly conversing and talking about the fact of how hard it is, the struggles that I'm having, and the truth behind burning the boats and making a big leap.
Dude, there was so much value in that right there, because it's so easy. You can find good and ugly in everything that you look at. So there's imperfection in everything. So
perfection's not real.
No, and it's like, fitness became something that was important for the second time in life a few years ago through my son. And I still look in the mirror and I can pick myself apart of all the things that could be better. But then you look at a picture from a year ago and you're like, so it's just what you focus on. What you focus on grows. But you choose what you focus on. So you could have been thinking about all the things that were going wrong and the money you didn't make or the people that didn't show up. But at the same time, that dude that charged $100,000 sees enough in you to do it for free. And really, that's the only thing you should carry home with you, regardless of the results, right?
Yeah, last night we had a dinner after the event with the speakers, and there was a couple other speakers in town that have spoke at my events, and they were doing other speeches, and we were asking some deep questions around the table. That's where I like to go, and I build relationships. And
can you tell some stories from that?
So I asked them what impact meant to them. I asked them how they show up and create impact in today's world. And then I asked the question of who's someone in your world right now that you don't give enough credit to, and you owe a bigger thank you. And at the end of the dinner, everybody was like, you know what, Jim? If you didn't take this leap, if you didn't decide to do this, then we wouldn't know each other. We wouldn't be at this dinner table.
That's right.
We wouldn't have poured our hearts out. We wouldn't have had these deep questions. And for me, man, I needed to hear that last night in that moment. You know, I got a lot of pressure going on. You know, we got another kid on the way. We just found out.
Get out.
Yeah.
All right. How far along?
Yeah. So she's super early, 12 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just getting out of the first trimester.
Okay.
Last year we had a tough year. We lost two babies.
Oh, man.
And my wife actually, she almost passed on
goodness.
the second one. So we're just super excited, man. And,
Absolutely.
you know, like last night was just one of those moments again of like, all right, Jim, you're going down the right path. And even something as little as this thank you, and we're at this table together because of you, just re-sparked and reignited that passion and that flow, man. And yeah, I'm just grateful. And back to what you said about the photos and looking back a year or so again, and like I think that's the key to success in life, is saying, instead of why am I further along, look where I've come.
That's right.
And whenever I get into these states of high pressure and high stress, that's exactly where I go, is look at the photo of Jim in 2018 when he decided to leave corporate and was 60 pounds heavier. Got into his car to drive to work and was sweating when he put on a suit jacket with his air condition on. Like, those are the moments that I have to look back and go, I think I'm doing all right today.
That's right.
You know, like,
right.
I think I'm doing okay.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
Dude, it's good to want to grow, and it's good to hold yourself accountable, and it's good to do all those things and be hard on yourself. Tough love is love. But at the same time, you got to have, like, if it was a scale, you got to give yourself a fighting chance for some type of like balance. So, like, you know, the good always wins. So people that are not happy, their scale is too heavy on the negative side. And what's funny is if you just balance it, or even get it just kind of close where maybe the negative still outweighs the positive a little bit, but if you have enough positive in your life, you had a good day, man.
Yeah.
And gratitude is the ultimate thing. You can't be in a bad mood if you're grateful.
Of course.
I heard from a pastor buddy of mine that ungratefulness is the root of all sin.
Ooh.
I kind of agree with that, you know.
That's powerful.
And your word impact is so powerful too, because literally we were at an event last week together, and I can't remember who said it, or I'd give them credit, but it was said, when you live out your God-given gifts in the marketplace, that's when you make an impact.
Ooh, powerful.
That's right.
Powerful.
That's right. And it's got to be through the marketplace, right? Because that's where somebody would consume it.
And that's the tool that's used, right? That's the tool that's used to get the exposure and to offer those the helpings and to grow and be in a position to help others and serve, right? Because we're all going to the marketplace for that.
That's right. You're helping everybody activate their impact.
Of course.
Right. Which again, if impact is defined as beautifully as it was, as I just said, it's when you live out your God-given gifts in the marketplace, right? So you're not giving it away for free.
Yep.
Right? It's value that's handed to somebody. And at the end of the day, that's what business is. There's a gooder of service that is given to somebody in trade for money.
Yep.
Right? At the end of the day, that's all it is.
And I think too, in like the consulting or coaching or whatever label world, you know, in that world that you want to put on it, it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to create impact, if I'm going to show up, then how do I do that in a way that feels good for everybody? And I think that's the most important piece. And how do you serve that person?
What's the biggest change you're going to make for the next 12 months on, like, every time we do something? If it's like, I believe everything that we do is, I believe I believe the whole world needs to hear it. I truly believe that. I believe, you know, if we're having an event of our own, I think all 8.5 billion people, whatever it is, should want to be there, right? That's how much I believe in it. But when 8.5 billion people don't show up, then the next thing is, well, the event, the message, we believe in everything that we did. Obviously, we have a marketing issue, right, or a promotional issue, or not enough people knew about it because they can't do business with us or partake in anything we're putting on if they don't know it's there, right?
Exactly.
So what are some things you're going to do that you've learned to continue to grow? Because again, I'm sure that the events and the messaging will continue to get better and better, but are already, if they don't, I think they're freaking solid, man. So at the end of the day, what are some of your plans to get this message in front of more people?
So I've got a conference coming up in September. It's called Impact Effect 24. We're doing it a little bit different. So instead of being spoken to from stage, the speaker is going to have about 10 minutes to define a concept and share with others. And then they're going to drop down and they're going to work around the round tables with each table and each group. So they'll be on mic still, so everybody can hear them and we can run exercises. But what my goal is for this conference is to line people up to take immediate action within the time frame of the one-day conference.
That's awesome.
So most conferences, as you know, most events you go to, and then you leave and you feel inspired and you feel motivated. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, and you do it, and then you forget, or you don't get to 2 or 3, and then life happens, and family, and business, and deals, and travel. Well, how can we take a one-day conference and have you actually do the work while you're there, while you're learning, apply it, and then leave better off than you were a day before?
That's like my buddy Marcus Whitney told me when he decided a few years ago around his 40th birthday he was going to get in shape. He was like, oh, yeah, dude, I hired a trainer that made me work out in the gym with my shirt off so I couldn't hide behind anything. He was like, it was all out in the open, and that's kind of what you're doing a little bit.
Yep.
People are like, because it's going to take some courage for somebody to want to be worked with on the microphone to say, I'm not perfect. Here's what I need help with. Help me, when they should be jumping to go figure out who can go first.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and how we're going to prime this and get everybody in the right state of mind is we're not asking you for 100% vulnerability that day. I'm just asking you for 10% more vulnerability. And if you can be a little 10% more vulnerable and share and be open and actually do the work throughout the day, then it's going to skyrocket your growth.
That's right. You're one of the first things you'll teach people to overcome by doing that is that, if they're too shy or they don't feel like they're ready to put themselves out there like that. It's just like when the agent walked in for day one and we're like, hey man, here's your CRM. Pull out your phone and here's a number, call it, and they're like, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. And, what if they don't like what I say, and so on and so forth. I was like, all I heard you say was I, right? So you're making it all about you and not about them and the problem you solve. So, which is a selfish act. Right. So that's your first problem right there. And that's what you're going to make people overcome day one.
Yeah. And that's so important. And the event that we were at last week, I'm in the process of writing a book, and John Gordon was talking about, and the biggest takeaway from that day to me was, love the reader. When you don't want to wake up and write, when you don't want to edit, when you don't feel like you're going down the right path, start thinking about loving on the person that's going to read this book and how it's going to change their life. And like when John said that, I was like, wow, that's so powerful, because in my head, the process that I was going through was all about me for the last couple of weeks. And that's why I think there was so much resistance.
That's right.
And so much tension built up and pressure, because it was like, well, I said this publicly. I was writing the book and I got the chapters and I don't really know about this. And how's this story going to look? And, I got to get this person to write a blurb. And, I haven't talked to them in a while. And I'm like, all that was about me.
That's right.
Like, just show up, Jim, wake up in the morning and write.
That's right.
And write for the person that's going to read the book. So, man, what you just said, it translated so much. And for, the sense of time, hearing that last week when we were together.
That's right.
It's funny how the world just works and meshes and brings everything together, man.
I'm telling you. And obviously anything that Rory and the crew over at Brand Builders puts on, it's top notch. I only have one regret about working with Brand Builders. Now I've been with them for a few years now. The only regret that I have about working with them is that I didn't do it 4 or 5 years sooner. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait is a 4-letter word, and I waited. Like, the only thing I could do different, I was like, man, I wish I'd have started just a few years earlier.
That's powerful.
But like how like we're all guilty of that to some degree. And it's like Brad always says, when people ask him, about the economics of the, rich and poor and the middle class and how the gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider and wider. He's like, what advice would you give him? He's like, jump. Because again, the gap's only getting wider, so jump as soon as you can, commit.
Yeah. You're not going to jump and land on your feet these days. You're going to jump and maybe just grab it with your fingertips, but you got to do it. You got to make that leap.
That's exactly right. Dude, like what, is there any, like, as we kind of get to the end of this sucker here, is there any final thoughts or anything, any takeaways? Like, honestly, I could sit here with you all day long, but I know you got places to be. I know you got stuff to do. And I totally plan on, bringing you back after your event in September for sure.
Sounds good, man.
To talk more about it. But, dude, what's some takeaways, like something that's really heavy on your heart right now? There's a fire in there that you want to help people with.
Yeah. I just want people to understand, to slow down and to spend more time to build the relationships that you already have. And if we focus on the people that we know or they're in our circle, then there's probably a good chance that those people will have a massive effect on you. And that effect can be financially from your business, but also it can be a level of friendship and a level of love and a level of comfort. So, without going down the path of like marriage and boyfriend, girlfriend, focusing on the relationships from a business standpoint and a friendship standpoint, do the work right now. It would be my advice, and send the message, send the text message. Someone pops into your head, call them.
Yeah.
Like someone, you see something online, shoot the private message, shoot the text message, because you never know how that's going to change someone's life.
That's right.
And just checking in on someone, they could be having the worst day of their life. And, just by you saying, oh, that person popped in my head. Hey, brother, how's things? Man, I said that to someone. They're like, things are bad. I'm thinking about killing myself. And I'm like, if I didn't send that text message, who knows what would have happened? And I'm not taking responsibility for that, but wow, now I need to check in on that person a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot. And they're not going to kill themselves. And they had a bad real estate deal, and I was involved in it, man. I lost $100K off that deal, right? But like, just because that person popped into my head and I reached out to them, opened up a conversation that stopped a potential bad thing from happening that many people would suffer from. And I'd be sad, man. I'd be sad if I lost that person. So
everybody that I know that's struggling or not happy in life, they're the same people. That one of them is my best friend since I was 6 years old, and he's going through a tough relationship thing. And I've talked to him more in the last 3 or 4 months than I have probably in the last 3 or 4 years while he's going through that. Right. So, however, he's getting on the other side of it, and now I ain't hearing from him anymore. And you know what? Not one time did he ask me how I was doing this whole time. It was all about him. And I have a family member. It's the same thing. They're not happy. Well, dude, like the only time you call is when you need something.
Yep.
It's all about you. It's always about you. It's never about anybody else. You never call and say, hey, man, how are you doing? Just wanted to call and say hello. Those 2 people I'm talking about right now, I've called them 99 out of the last 100 times. And the only time they called me is if they needed something. Anytime if there wasn't something that was needed, I sparked the call to say, how are you doing? And I can promise you, neither one of them are near as busy as I am.
Yep. That's usually how it goes. Usually how it goes. And I think too, what you said, like, you've called them so many times and they haven't called you, or you've reached out a majority of the time. Like, it gets to a point where, and I teach this and I say, okay, own the responsibility of the relationship when it starts, but you have to understand when you shouldn't have to own that relationship and the responsibility to get it going, right? And that gets to the stages of relationships. Like stage 1 of growing, own the responsibility to grow it. Stage 2 of managing it, that's when you not necessarily should be making all the calls. It should be that back and forth.
That's right.
And then that stage 3, expansion. Like, to expand that relationship is you getting really vulnerable, really raw, really direct, and having a conversation of where you're trying to go and where you want to help that person go.
That's right.
Right? But like in that middle or that 3rd stage, it should never be a one-way street. It should always be that back and forth.
That's right.
So what are you going to do, man? Like, you going to reach out to them again, or are you going to, just kind of let it coast? Oh, you told them?
Oh, I told them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I said, I was like, I went back and audited our relationships and our phones. I went through our text messages and our phone calls. And the only time you reached out to me is if you had a question because you needed something.
Yep.
And I can say, I called you this many times. I texted you this many times, say, hey, how you doing? Just thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. Or I'll send them a video and say, hey, thought of you on this, or something that was funny or whatever it may be.
Yep.
But like it, it really just kind of, it just bothered me, it bothered me a little bit. And to a point where I was like, I need to say something, but I'm also trying to help them because I know that that's one of the reasons they're not happy.
Yeah. It's a tough place to be because your heart's saying this person needs the help, but your brain's saying, think about this for a second. And what do what's the benefit to both parties?
Yeah.
Because right now it sounds like there's a benefit to that party.
One of the things that my wife and I do every time to make sure that this is fresh on our mind and we feed ourselves with is we just do a few exercises. And we know a lot of business owners, right? So we a couple times a week, we like to find 2 or 3 people that we just want to reach out to randomly and be like, hey, I was just thinking about you and miss you. Looking forward to catching up soon, hope everything's going on in your life, whatever it may be. And then we do the same thing where we go and just 3 businesses or whatever that we visited, instead of saying what went wrong, we say what went right. Because most people, when they leave a review, it's the negative part. When you want to look at reviews, unfortunately, most of the time it's the bad, not always the good. So for us, it's everything's a skill. Confidence is a skill. Being kind is a skill. Heck, being negative is a skill, and some people are really good at it. And
a lot of people are really good at it, man.
That's right. But if you practice, dude, that was the best 99-cent cheeseburger I've ever had. Let me just go tell somebody the good news about it. Just there's two sides of the news, and part of that, the half I love is the good news. Yep. And that's the hardest to find these days.
Well, I think too, and science proves this. There's studies around it. We have 60,000 thoughts a day on average, and 80% of those are negative. And
even
so that's what, 48,000, if I did the math right, something around that, negative thoughts a day. Well, what are you doing with those negative
and
thoughts?
Most of those are subconscious too, right?
And you don't even know. You're not sitting there dwelling on it. You're not in the car ride in traffic thinking about that negative thought. That negative thought's just happening.
That's right.
So how do you work the subconscious? How do you work, showing up and being positive? And my little quick hack is DTO. Do the opposite. When I have a negative thought, do the opposite.
DTO, I like that. DTO.
I gotta get some shirts or something about
Absolutely.
that,
Absolutely. DTO, I love it.
Be like, do what? The opposite?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's again, you can't win the war against the world if you can't win the war against your own mind, right? And again, your thoughts are a skill. Like, they're all habit-based, right?
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
Dude, we could go on all day long. So tell me a little bit more about the event in September, because this is a big one. How many? What's the seating capacity look like? How many? What's going to make this event awesome for you guys on top of what you're going to do for others?
Yes. So a couple hundred folks. We're going to be right in downtown Nashville. We've got the Woolworth Theater. We're going to do some VIP stuff the night before, get some good networking, structured networking going. My whole goal is really to get people to dive into people's experiences, their beliefs, and their values. So we're going to curate kind of a way to do that so people actually build relationships and not just, surface level networking. But for us, man, the whole goal of this is the conversation that happens after the event,
right? The
conversation that happens 3 months, 6 months later. Yeah. What are you doing with it? And use us as a resource, not just for the event, but to go forward. Last year's conference included 4 follow-up live events.
Wow.
So the January, February, March, and the one we have coming up in April with Janine Driver, those are all included in last year's tickets. Well, we're going to do something similar, but because of cost in Nashville and venues and expenses, we're going to do it digitally.
Got it.
So you're going to come to the conference, but you're also going to get 5 segments with the speakers virtually as follow-up, and it's going to be a hot seat conversation.
See what you learn. Every time you do something, you make it better.
Dude, I'll tell you what, the biggest mistake I made out of this conference was having 4 live events. It's cost me so much money.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how to do this space, and I'm spending so much time and money based on something that I got revenue for in October of last year.
Got it.
Mistake.
Yeah.
My heart said,
Nobody's undefeated.
no, man, my heart said, hey, we got to get people back and build relationships. And we can do that, but not necessarily at my expense, right? So that was a learning curve for me, for sure. But I'm excited for this year, man. It's going to be so freaking dope. We got a couple speakers lined up, like how we're actually doing it and what's occurring throughout the conference during the day is just going to be unique and different. It's something you've never experienced.
I love it. Well, I know Mediana and I have been talking about you and like, man, we want to do some stuff with him. Like, so I'm excited, dude. I really am. I think, again, your best days are definitely ahead. And you just look at home on stage, man. You look good up. You look good up there. You just look like you belong there.
Thank you, brother.
The smile is the smile that you see, and honestly, man, it's just a energy and like a confidence when you're up there. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So, you were born to do that, brother. Born to do it, man. So, folks, we're hanging with Jim Morris, the CEO of Impact Effect, sought out keynote speaker and relationship extraordinaire, right? So check him out on therealjimmorris.com, on Instagram at therealjimmorris, and any events and stuff they want to register at, they can find everything on your website, right?
Yes, sir.
Make sure you guys follow and connect with him. Jim, it's so great to have you on the show today, man. Is there any final thoughts that you got for everybody today?
Just thank you. Thank you. We need to say thank you more. We need to have that gratitude more.
I couldn't think of a better way to bring it to a close, brother.
Let's go.
That's right, man. That's right. Well, folks, big shout out to Jim Morris. Check out the Impact Effect, the big event coming up in September. Tickets are limited, man. So you gotta snag them early. And those of you that are saying, we just can't afford it this year, I'm going to tell you, you can't afford not to go. You got to flip it around, right? So instead, when you say you can't afford to go, you got to put one word in there. You got to change it with one word, and you can't afford not to go, right? Because of the value and knowledge you're going to get from it. So check out Jim Morris, the CEO of Impact Effect, and his big event in September right here in downtown Nashville, right?
Let's go.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.